Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome to our webinar, How Pharma Can Use Digital Health to Drive Value. My name is Todd Greenwood. I am a Director of Digital Strategy here at Medullan. About 20 years in developing evidence-based programs for pharma, patient-centric programs to support patients and their behavioral needs. I'm also joined by my colleague Ben Dean. Ben is a digital strategist as well, with a focus on business and monetization, and he'll tell you a little bit more about himself in the second half of this webinar. I'd like to invite everyone, as we are speaking today, to provide questions in the chat box, and we'll have some time, hopefully, at the end of the half hour to address those questions. Before we get started, I just wanted to provide a little bit of information about who Medullan is. We're digital health experts, which means that your world, the business challenges that you face, and the healthcare problems you're trying to solve, well, those are our world as well. We do consulting services. We have a digital platform that enable leading healthcare companies to improve the lives of customers. In short, we help companies from across the healthcare spectrum to identify and capitalize on innovative opportunities, to design and validate digital products, and to get to market quickly and effectively. We use a cross-functional approach, a lean best practiced approach, and we help organizations harness technology to enable their vision. So today we're going to spend some time talking about the shift to value, what that means, how digital can be used to harness real-world evidence, and how that applies to the shift to value, and then what it takes to get started. So to get started, let's talk about shift to value, and what it's about. Is it about slowing the increase of costly therapeutics, devices, and tests? Sure, but I would say that it's much deeper than just cost control. The vision is to focus on value. When I say value, it's based on the quality of care and patient outcomes throughout the healthcare system. So for payers, what does the shift mean? It starts with payment reform, moving from a fee-for-service model, and then moving to more innovative models, such as risk models, in which we see some emerging areas such as the oncology care model being front and center. The shift is, of course, slow. It's not coordinated like the rest of healthcare, and it's enormously complex. But essentially, it boils down to cost and quality. How can we avoid bigger costs, such as hospitalization, by investing in smaller costs, such as patient monitoring tools and behavioral tools? Conversely, the other way of thinking about it is that if one solution to a problem, say a new medicine, costs more than an incumbent solution, is it delivering an outcome that's worth the additional price? Of course, I've tried to summarize what is enormously complex in just a minute, but hopefully that's useful. And the statistic by 2020, 75% of commercial payments will be made through value-based arrangements. Even with changes in the new administration in the United States and expected changes to the ACA, we believe that innovative models such as MIPS and MACRA are here to stay. They're driving reform. There'll be new innovative models, and value-based arrangements will evolve to become the norm in the next 5 years. So where does pharma fit in this? Pharma has been involved in value-based deals, and in general, it's fair to say that these kinds of deals fall into 4 different kinds of models. The first is payment that's dependent upon a desired outcome. And here, for example, we see with Entresto that reductions in hospitalizations were, that's what payment to Aetna, Cigna, Harvard Health would be based on in this case. A second model would be a larger rebate in the absence of an outcome. So with Repatha, Amgen, Amgen would pay a higher rebate if there was missed LDL goals and utilization. And again, this was a deal with Cigna and Harvard Health. A third model would be performance against competitors, so head-to-head. Trulicity would provide a rebate based on the percentage of A1C targets versus other GLP-1s. And then the fourth model would be looking at indication-specific pricing. With Tarceva had indications for both lung cancer and pancreatic cancer, had shown better survival rates in lung cancer, so the deal with Express Scripts there was based on a different pricing model for the outcomes that it could achieve with lung cancer. So, the question remains, if the shift to value in the healthcare environment is evolving, why haven't we seen a rush to value-based contracting in pharma? And we believe that it comes down to data. If you're going to draw up a risk-based contract that requires you to show clinical and economic outcomes in order to get paid, that's an enormous barrier to entry for all parties. And when you think about it, first there's the question of fragmentation. It's easy if all of the care is being delivered in a closed organization, such as a Kaiser or a VA, where all the data is in one place. But in the United States, most Americans are treated all over the place. My data is sitting in dozens of EHRs. Not only that, much of data is still on paper. Older populations of doctors, even though they have clear financial reasons to convert, it's not worth the effort. And payers are not just interested in the drugs that were, picked up at the store or shipped through specialty pharmacy. They want to know about real-world adherence. So it's not just about the transactional data. And tracking the fidelity of drug adherence, as we all know, is no easy thing. So when you're talking about data, you need to consider as well the increasing concern for patient privacy. Every day in the news, we're seeing indications of that. Who owns the data? Who controls the data? And I think that those are some of the underlying reasons why we're not seeing many contracts. And the CEO of Novartis, this statement sums it up as well. Yet, with all these barriers, there's an increasing number of contracts, value-based contracts, that have been announced over the years. Here's just a partial list. There are other deals in transplantation and other disease areas that are not on the list. If we take a look at there was a deal late last year, interesting one between Merck and Aetna. It looked at A1C levels as a key outcome measure, but it didn't assume that patients would be able to achieve those outcomes on their own. The deal involved the use of a patient-centric platform called Aetna Care, and it was a personalized approach to care that used analytics for targeting and customized care plans, and it combined both clinical and non-clinical approaches to changing patient behavior. Patients had a wellness plan, and there were Amgen Care nurses that met with members in person, at home, and really focused on those teachable moments, patient education. So very interesting idea there. That was the next to last one on this list, type 2 diabetes. The last one on the list, 2017 Enbrel, I want to point out that one as well for RA, and that was an outcomes-based agreement between Amgen and Harvard Pilgrim. And Harvard Pilgrim will pay less for Enbrel if patients score below a particular score on a bunch of criteria for RA. They have an effectiveness algorithm. And what I think is particularly interesting about this deal as well is that even though Enbrel is going to be off patent, the deal was struck as a hedge against biosimilars that are entering in the market to extend at least some life of Enbrel for Harvard Pilgrim. So beyond the problems of providing good data, there are other reasons that value-based deals are not de rigueur. And we can think of that as generally a non-alignment between pharma, what pharma wants and what payers want. It was Ernst & Young that said, pharma is from Mars and payers are from Venus. And the fact is that payers are looking for two key things: budgetary certainty, cost containment, and data that is comparative in real world. Payers want to know how a drug compares against an incumbent, not a placebo, and how the drug performs in real world with real patients. Ernst & Young also said we have to recognize that payers are increasingly the new power brokers, and we need to understand that these power brokers, don't all make their decisions the same way. So when we say that payers are asking for real-world data, it's useful to look at what the difference is between the gold standard that's needed for FDA approval, that we all know about, and certainly what's accepted by HCPs, and what payers are seeking. The key issue is with randomized control trials versus real-world evidence, it's really the way the data is collected. Real-world evidence is looking at data that is ongoing and prospective. In real-world evidence, the populations are different. They're more representative. In randomized control trials, patients are at their best behavior. In real-world evidence, we're collecting adherence data from people who are just being people, and, using the medication, in the wild. And the benefits are not just what's necessary to get FDA approval. It's really about the everyday clinical picture. Finally, randomized control trials don't focus much on cost, whereas real-world evidence is looking at the overall cost and value to payers. So, the point is that getting real-world data is not easy. First, the process of generating patient-centric data requires acquiring, engaging, and activating users for a sufficient period of time. And what does that take? It takes expertise in human-centered design and understanding what patients and caregivers and HCPs need to be part of a digital solution, because this really does require engaging in a digital platform. And second, the process of compiling existing data from disparate sources not only means digital integration with all of those sources of data, but it also requires a HIPAA-compliant, high-trust platform that can support that. And needless to say, you have to have a deal or contract in place with the owner of that data to even unlock it. So there's real know-how. You need experts to get at it and to make it work. But fortunately, getting this can mean better transparency, more leverage, and a unique advantage in the market. So to talk a little bit more about what it takes and how to get into that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Ben Dean.
Perfect. Yeah, so actually coming to you folks from Switzerland today, and I'll talk briefly to kind of about my background and then jump into this. My name is Benjamin Dean. I'm a strategy consultant here at Medullan. After graduating from Duke, I kind of began my career in venture capital, focusing on applying advanced analytics and kind of hard science innovation to large inefficient industries. Healthcare experience includes doing commercialization strategy for GE Healthcare in emerging markets, as well as negotiating, modeling kind of value-based deals between providers and payers at an organization called Privia Health. Also an active angel investor across multiple digital health startups. And really here at Medullan, my focus is on understanding the ecosystem of digital health technologies out there, as well as designing and formulating the monetization and commercialization strategies around these different solutions to drive ROI for our clients. So with that said, I want to start by kind of introducing, what digital is, kind of defining the terms, and discussing how it can help you to kind of begin to use it and consider it as a proprietary asset. So here at Medullan, when we evaluate these technologies, we consider them within the context of a spectrum that you see displayed on this slide. This spectrum spans apps, which are these standalone products, discrete and limited focus, to full-on digitally powered programs that kind of unite and direct human and technology resources towards driving improved outcomes and lowering cost. Now, that's not to say apps don't have value. I think, sleep, for instance, that you see on the very left-hand side of the spectrum actually has a discrete and specific focus, collecting sleep data using the iPhone's accelerometer and microphone. But when considered, that data can actually be helpful in broader purposes, such as predicting psychotic relapse when considering diseases such as central nervous system disorders. And when you're able to do things like predicting these conditions, you can then start connecting this to direct spend, specific unnecessary hospital spend, while also using the interaction to promote the right type of behavior. So in this middle column, when we get into solutions, what these represent are really combinations of technologies and ecosystem partners, and could entail everything from a telephone service staff with certified healthcare providers to technology tools that are able to drive improved outcomes for employers, providers, and PBMs. Now, on the end of the spectrum that you see here, platform. These are full programs and platforms that are able to facilitate kind of continuous improvement of outcomes. They can be used as kind of accelerating technologies to bring unique digital health solutions to market by not only providing kind of the necessary back-end support and secure data storage, but also performing some baseline functionality needed across product areas. Now, some companies have even used this or created platforms that are deployed and reimbursed for by payers. One such company that you see displayed here is Omada, which leverages behavioral motivation and counseling as tools to drive improved self-care between visits to providers. So it actually empowers the patient to prevent and manage their own lifestyle factors that contribute to the development of their diabetic condition. Now, this obviously can help keep spend down for payers, as well as give patients more of a feeling of improved control and insight into their own healthcare. So moving on, what digital actually offers specifically for pharmaceutical is kind of a broad range of opportunities, spanning from developing medicine, informing the development of your medicine, as well as kind of changing the nature of the products themselves. So for the first, digital can improve clinical trials through expedited patient recruitment, as well as automated and enhanced patient monitoring. It can also serve as a medium through which real-world evidence can be collected, not only through the applications themselves, but also by pulling in external sources of data and securely holding them. And when compiled and analyzed correctly, as Todd was saying, this real-world data can actually turn into real-world evidence and serve as a proprietary asset that pharma can then use to negotiate improved formulary status. So just think, if you're able to prove in a more continuous way that a patient's health outcomes are getting better because of your drug, then the value of your molecule only increases. But it's also important to realize that digital can improve the nature of the product themselves, especially when combined with digital or when combined with the product in a bundle-like model. If you're able to supplement the product with a digital solution that's able to improve patients' compliance to the prescribed treatment regimen, then outcomes can actually benefit. The drug can be personally titrated both through the use of genetic diagnostics as well as more continuous communication between the patient and the provider. On top of that, the drug can actually be supplemented with digital treatment therapies such as cognitive behavioral therapy and cognitive remediation therapy, which can actually drive lifestyle changes to further benefit and enhance the effect of the drug, not only in addition to kind of warding off its side effects as well. So it's important to realize when considering digital that it really touches all aspects of the product lifecycle. These days, most patients are actually discussing their experience with your products online on networking sites like Patients Like Me and other drug forums. You will actually find reports of adverse events both during clinical trials and certainly post-launch in a variety of online forums. Now, the good news is that this data can be captured, stored, analyzed, and used both in the R&D phases of drug development as well as during what's referred to as phase 4 testing as proof for payers of drug efficacy. And in a world of increasing formulary exclusions and competitive verticals, this type of data is going to be key in proving to payers the competitive advantages as well as the additional efficacies that your drug can provide. But you also have to realize that this data comes from a variety of sources, as can be seen on the left of this graphic. As patients undergo their own journey from self-care to diagnosis to even formal treatment, they're generating and giving away their own health data through a variety of sources, ranging from external telehealth vendors to EHRs to social media and even wearable devices. So what's most ideal in the long term is investing in a platform that can span not only multiple therapeutic areas but also stages of product development. This data has applications across the product lifestyle, so it's important to realize that your digital capabilities should as well. Now, what the screen is showing right now is how this data can actually be monetized, right? So not only do you actually have the ability to gain an additional understanding of your customers, but you also have the ability to drive a unique relationship with them. And it's this relationship that creates an opportunity for monetization. So what you see here is a traditional kind of pharmaceutical funnel that lays out the epidemiology or segmentation underlying a drug purchase. The funnel starts with the prevalence of a disease, then narrows to the population of the market that actually has the diagnosis or the incident rate. It follows with those seeking treatment, those prescribed the drug, those compliant with the treatment, and finally the amount of the product that they consume. So transitioning, with digital technologies and an understanding of where the significant patient fall-off is throughout this funnel, you can actually treat these steps in the epidemiology as specific opportunities. They're opportunities in which digital technology can be used to teach, monitor, and motivate the right type of behavior for the right kind of patients. So let's walk through each. First, with the screening or diagnostic technology, you can actually expand the pool of patients at the top of the funnel by coupling marketing campaigns with a self-taught screening tool, or more sophisticatedly, a validated FDA-approved diagnostic that actually empowers providers to diagnose more accurately and more rapidly. Now, second, you can actually drive patients who have the diagnosis to seek more treatment, getting them to the doctor more frequently to make sure they're prescribed the drug when they need it. To do this, you can use a personalized education solution tailored to the right teachable moments of the patient journey, which a digital solution can be built to both identify as well as provide. Now, third, you can actually influence the prescription habits by educating providers as well as patients about the benefits of your drug, and you can use your newly acquired real-world evidence to empower providers to treat through first-line therapies more efficiently in order to get to the more efficacious specialty drugs when they're needed most for patients. Now, fourth and finally, you can also drive better medication adherence through behavioral motivation and influence. So collectively, what this means is that you have multiple opportunities for more drug sales and an ROI that is driven both by the value of your drug as well as by the volume that you're able to influence through digital technology. Now, on this slide, what we've done is kind of listed out 6 representative types of business models that can be applied to monetize the digital health in and of itself, right? So this is independent of drug purchases. Now, this list spans simple types of models like freemium or freemium models to attribution-based models like gain share or performance-based. So we're going to walk through each briefly to kind of give you an overview of what companies out there are doing these as well as how they work in the market. Now, freemium typically describes the use of a free version of a solution to entice users into buying a premium version, and is typically applied to the users of a system, meaning the consumers or the physicians. The examples you see here are Practice Fusion, which is an EMR that actually monetizes through advertising. It's a free EHR that's actually provided to clinicians and actually embeds advertising, making use of the available audience they have, as well as WebMD, which has a classic kind of freemium structure. In a set monthly fee, charge for the use of the platform on kind of a per user basis. This is a traditional subscription model, which is becoming, frankly, harder and harder to justify as more customers are evolving to prefer value-based deals. You're seeing B2B segments increasingly look to the value of a particular digital intervention simply because of the saturation that exists in the market today. Now, when you get into reimbursement codes, which is a negotiated kind of fee for service that can be provided to either the physicians that are using the technology or to the suppliers themselves, like Omada does in diabetes, though these seem like the ultimate kind of revenue source, they actually can limit the potential for digital health solutions in driving revenue, because performance-based contracting and gain share or shared savings deals can actually offer more upside as you successfully are able to attribute the success of the digital intervention to the performance. Now, some performance-based deals that we've listed have taken place between Merck & Co. and Aetna Care, and have actually revolved around kind of the sophisticated digital diagnostics that's able to identify the right type of patients for the Merck & Co. Drug in this case. And then in gain share or capitated or bundled payments, these shared savings split between payers and providers take place either in capitated or bundled payment structures, such as ACOs or episode group payments like the oncology care model that Todd referenced. And you're even seeing apps evolve to only look to get paid on the basis of their ability to achieve defined metrics that they previously agreed to with their payers. Now, this final business model, which is labeled bundled as a PSP, really just looks at a digital health program or a digital health solution as part of a patient support or physician support program. The classic example here is Lilly Taltz for autoimmune disorders. This is a solution that's heavily focused on compliance and is actually integrated as part of the PSP and is able to really just drive additional drug revenue through boosting compliance of the patients. So finally, to wrap up, we want to discuss briefly what it takes to get started for your own organization. So when considering how to deploy digital technology, it's important to kind of understand what your starting point is and how that maps to your overarching goals. So first and foremost, you have to measure the success and the capability of your current workflow. You need to know where you stand before determining what your next priority should be. Now at Medullan, we've actually helped a number of our clients get started with our digital strategy practice. They lead an audit of kind of current capabilities at your organization and identify what competitive threats or innovation opportunities exist across therapeutic or product areas. Now, with this understanding, you can then seek and drive internal alignment around a specific goal. Seize the opportunity to inform and incite a conversation about digital technologies at your organization with your therapeutic area leads or commercial leads. Often a white paper or an informed presentation sent around to the leaders of your organization is a fantastic way to get this process started. Next, you need to kind of understand what's out there in terms of digital health innovation. Take stock of the opportunities outside of your company in order to empower yourself to learn from other companies' failures as well as successes, so you can gain insight into what the most actionable and correct next step might be. After this, you can rapidly innovate and use a fail fast and succeed faster mindset. This is what we call staying lean. It's a risk mitigating approach that maximizes speed to market while minimizing cost and risk along the way. While lean is a frequently used concept in startup culture, it has a particular nuance in digital health technologies, given the levels of risk that we see in healthcare. So we advocate a carefully planned, pilot-based approach that allows you to prove the efficacy or test the efficacy of your digital intervention out in a controlled, compliant, and private setting. And then fifth and finally, we recommend that you take the time that's left in this current quarter to anticipate your needed investment for the rest of 2017. Most pharma companies these days will have some form of digital initiative already started, but you have to make sure that you're leading the way instead of simply following suit. So feel free to reach out to us to discuss how we can help get you started or accelerate existing efforts. And with that, we'd like to wrap up this webinar and open the floor up to any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Ben. Actually, we're sensitive to time. We're at the half-hour mark. What I would suggest is that for those who do have questions, please, you can still submit them into the chat, and we will get back to you. Again, we thank you so much for your time this afternoon.